Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and Harry Christmas Eve. Um, well, I think we should reflect a little bit on this day before Christmas about whether or not we have anything other than coal in our stocking in the United States. Oh, yeah. The stock market is right up at all-time highs. It's down a little bit today, big hairy deal. But nice pump job, Mr. Chairman, and a bunch of others. People don't remember 1998 and 1999 and what happened after that, right? Well, same kind of monetary stupidity. But I want to back up and take a look at the 2015 and 2016 stuff. Okay? And what happened here, and I want to draw parallels to a very nasty time in our country called Watergate. Everybody knows the base story of Watergate. Watergate was a election interference attempt by the Republican Party. They broke into the Democrats' campaign headquarters, the Watergate Hotel, and they stole a bunch of stuff. They got caught. And then the President of the United States tried to cover it up, Richard Nixon, and as a result, Richard Nixon was forced from office. Okay. By the way, he was never actually impeached. He lost a court case to try to keep records and testimony from Congress. They did the right thing and went to Congress. The Supreme Court ruled against him that he had to turn over the documents that they were after, and at that point, his support collapsed in both the House and the Senate. The House was prepared to impeach him without that. However, unlike what just happened here, they waited until the legal process played out. And Nixon knew that if the documentation was turned over, he was going to be forced out of office. He had no support in the Senate at that point. They were going to vote to convict him, and so he resigned. Now let's look at what happened starting in 2015. The common narrative that is run is that all of this stuff about Donald Trump and Russian interference and the investigation didn't take place until after the election. We now know that is a lie. In fact, we now know that starting in 2015, the Democrat National Committee was illegally using the intelligence gathering capacity within the United States and multiple other countries to attempt to get dirt on Donald Trump and prevent him from becoming president. Folks, that's exactly what the Republican plumbers did with the Watergate Hotel. The difference is these people didn't just violate a breaking and entering statute. They violated some of the most important laws that were put into place after 9/11, supposedly to keep our country safe. They passed those laws along with Republicans. They represented to the American public that these laws did not constitute an unlawful interference into people's personal affairs because they were only used and could only be used to interdict terrorism. They could not be used for political purposes. And in fact, it is illegal to use them for other than terrorism purposes. Yet we have a FISA judge who is now being allowed to resign, even though it appears facially that she knew, as the chief judge of that court, that these affidavits were coming into her courtrooms without any backing evidence, and no testimony was taken. Now, this is not an adversarial process, it's all done ex parte. However, these applications were not being examined, they were not being questioned, they were being rubber stamped, which is crazy. But as far as I can tell, that's exactly what happened. Nor does it end there. We also know that not only was that used, but that our foreign policy connections were used by Democrats, including Joe Biden, by the way, and Obama, not just to queer an election, but to enrich themselves. We have every reason to believe that that's true. We don't have proof of it yet, but we have a smoking gun in the form of Joe Biden himself bragging about getting a prosecutor fired. We have the people in the Ukraine saying that the Biden dude, Hunter, was hired only because his name was Biden. He was not hired because he had great experience in international affairs and running a company. He was hired because his name was Biden. In other words, he was hired to obscure and block any investigation into the things that were going on within the firm. Now, that by itself is probably not illegal. Companies do that sort of crap all the time. Theranos, anybody? How many of those board members went to jail? And yet it was one of the big frauds of the 2010 era. Absolutely none of those board members went to jail. Nobody was prosecuted except, Miss Beautiful Face, she got in quite a bit of trouble. But no one was prosecuted for knowingly aiding and abetting the fraud against the American public and against investors. Hey, that's no big deal there. It's not really a problem, right? So what are we doing here? So what's going on? We have today half of our government, if not more, half of our elected government, probably 90% of the people in D.C., that are either actively involved or complicit in not just scamming America, but literally, folks, trying to steal an election. We're not talking about, let's stuff the ballot box and, harvest ballots and stuff. Hey, guys, that stuff's small ball. And it continued to the point that now, that after the election, after Donald Trump won, they continued to do this in an attempt to essentially create and execute on a putsch. And as for Donald Trump, where are his nuts? The Horowitz report makes clear exactly what was going on here. Is he incapable of reading it? The Horowitz report puts the timeline out there. Is he incapable of doing anything about it? He runs the entire prosecutorial mechanism of the United States. He is the chief of the executive division. And yet, we're just going to let Durham go do his thing and maybe there'll be a couple of indictments. Really? Just a couple of indictments? As we sit here on Christmas Eve, we should contemplate something very carefully. There is no, and I do mean no, attempt by anybody, not here in the grassroots, not in Washington, not in the state houses, nowhere, to hold the people responsible for this outrage accountable. And do not mistake what happened here, folks. It is an outrage. It is insane. Yet no one has stood up and said, excuse me, bing, 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 bing. The documentation is now on the table in the Horowitz report. That's an official government document. You can't argue with it, folks. What happened, happened. These weren't 17 errors. And all of the claims by Comey and by others that all of this started at a certain time with a certain set of, that's a bunch of bullshit. It's a lie. And it's been documented as a lie. That lie was not only told to the American public, which politicians do all the time, although law enforcement officers aren't supposed to. Politicians do it constantly. Not only was that lie told to the American public, That lie was told to Congress in sworn testimony, because all testimony before Congress is. And yet there have been no criminal referrals that have come out of this, and Congress has done absolutely nothing, Democrat or Republican. Oh, yeah, Lindsey Graham is rattling his saber. Folks, they're not going to change anything until and unless the people of this country get pissed off enough to insist on it, just like what happened with Richard Nixon. Think about it. As you sit around today, you be your keyboard commando. And let's face it, that's what we all are. You know, look, I write these things, I publish them. But at the end of the day, am I mad enough to go, go out of the front porch? No. Do you know why? Because if I did, I'd be the only one doing it. And we all know how that ends. You know, a bunch of people get to say, oh, you know, look at that jackass, he's in a pine box. And the more important thing is it doesn't change anything. Not only that, you don't need a gun. You don't need weapons. You just need to tell these people in D.C., this is going to end right blankety-blanking now, or else. And the or else doesn't have to be we're going to burn the town to the ground. It can be we're going to burn the economy to the ground. We're going to burn your taxing authority to the ground because we're not going to go to work or we're not going to pay taxes. You know, isn't it amazing that a bunch of people in Hong Kong and in France, for crying out loud, the nation that has a record of having pristine rifles available on the secondary market because they've never been fired and they've only been dropped once, by simply deciding they're going to show up in the streets and they're not going to leave. They're going to shut down commerce. They and the people in Hong Kong who, you know, oh, they're so violent. No, they're not. How much of that town has been burnt? None. Yeah, okay, there's been a few skirmishes here and there. There's been some tires set on fire in Mill Street. The truth is, they're doing a pretty good job of resisting a bunch of communist thugs out of Beijing. What have we done? Think about it, folks. Supposedly half the country is MAGA. Well, what have you done? Anything at all? Not a word. And yet you now have documentary proof from our own government that these things happened. This isn't me saying it. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This isn't, taking and weaving together the parts of a story. It's documentary proof. With that, I will leave you to have a wonderful Christmas. I hope you enjoy your families. And if you're Christian, celebrate the birth of Jesus. But you know what? You're not going to celebrate the birth of Jesus. We ought to just cut the crap. We ought to take the word Christ out, because all it is, hey, we got Black Friday, we got this sale, we got that sale, we got all this stuff, we got Amazon, we got, everybody's got smiling box packages showing up on their doorstep. Please. All right. I haven't set foot in a Catholic church in an awfully long time, and there's a long story behind that. Sometime maybe I'll tell it. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow as a podcast. Why I don't go. The short form is there isn't any way for me to materially support the organization without supporting things that I can't. That's just the way their finances are structured, and they chose that, not me. But, for a very long time, long before then, the concept of taking a what's supposed to be a religious celebration, turning it into a secular holiday that is an orgy of blowing money you don't have, never did make any damn sense. I've never liked the holidays all the way back to when I was a kid, and I still don't. But that's okay, because you know what? Tomorrow's a new day, and today is a nice quiet one. Sit around, do some things around the house that need to be done, and maybe have a few adult beverages. Why not? After I go running, which is right up next. Have a good one, folks, and I'll talk to you soon.